Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Director Vivekananda Cultural Center, Professor Rajneesh Kumar Shukla, Dr. Pikele Nobukani Vilakazi, Dr. Lefa Halope, Dr. Justin Yarrow, Swami Vedanand Saraswatiji, Mr. Toki Mohoto, Miss Kavita Solanki, Miss Shasti Harinarayan, Mr. Piyush Khandawal, distinguished online guests, on behalf of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, Consulate General of India, Durban, it gives me great pleasure to invite you to today's program, World Day for Cultural Diversity for Dialogue and Development, the theme being Understanding Culture as Universal Consciousness. World Day for Cultural Diversity for Dialogue and Development is annually held on May 21st to help people learn about the importance of cultural diversity and harmony. Various events around the world are organized to increase the understanding of issues around cultural diversity and development among governments, non-governmental organizations, and the public. To begin today's program, I would like to invite and introduce our first guest speaker, Dr. Pelike Nobukani Vilakazi. Dr. Pelike Vilakazi holds her PhD Gender Studies, University of KwaZulu-Natal, an alumni of the University of the Western Cape, South Africa. She is an MA in Development Studies and an alumni of the University of Finland, Doctorate of Philosophy in Social and Public Policy coursework. She is a Sangoma and herbalist. She is also a Reiki healer from the master Karen Langen, Reiki trainer of the Reiki healership. Dr. Pikele Vilakazi is a qualified Sangoma and herbalist, often referred to as a traditional healer whose spiritual name is Gogo Solomon Chagoban. From 2007 to 2012, former executive director of Coalition of African Lesbians, an African radical feminist organization in Africa that is based in South Africa to champion a collective of African lesbian women feminists. She currently serves as a board of the Advice Desk for the Abused, an organization that works to defend survivors of gender-based violence in Durban, and a member of the Durban Feminist Collective in South Africa. She has been involved in lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and intersexual activism, feminist activism, gender-based violence in Johannesburg, South Africa. She's been international since the year 2004. Prior to that, she was involved in student, youth, women, and gender politics, social and public policies in South Africa, with specific focus on leadership, youth, and sex work, community development, and women organization between the years 1993 to 2004. She is currently an academic and intellectual activist working at the School of Social Science within the Department of Political Science and Public Policy, lecturing in both disciplines. She continues her activism through the lenses of corporate social responsibility, community mobilization, feminist organizing, and the intellectual activism.
We're having this conversation around the issue of culture or cultures in the context of what we understand as global cultures. And just wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of the variations of cultures as we understand them from the traditional healing systems globally. And I wanted to point out the fact that we have variations of that within the African traditional healing systems in what we call different ancestors and ancestresses. So we are talking, for instance, ancestors that are coming from what you call Abanguni. Abanguni is a term that emanates from variations of the Bantus in the different different generations of the Bantus, where you have, the Kiswahilis, you've got the Mashangane, the Zulus, the Xhosas, Mandebele, and all of that, really emanating from different parts of the continent. So in the kind of traditional African spiritualities that doesn't really end in Africa. For instance, in my body, you can see even the way that I'm dressed, that I've got some elements of what we call Idlozi Lamakhosi, which is an ancestor that emanates from what you call Amakhosi, which is Zulu. But you can also see I'm wearing a crystal in my forehead, which is also a representation of a different type of cultures that I embrace in my body. So the embodiment is therefore global in a sense that in my own body, there's a number of ancestors and ancestresses that reside. I come from a family, both my maternal and paternal families have got a history that goes back to colonization and even to slavery. So I have, for instance, a British heritage where my mother was a mixed race person, and my father. So I have both black and white ancestors in that sense, and ancestresses. But I've landed in a place where I was born in Africa, in Johannesburg, and there's also elements in my heritage that emanate from Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and some parts of Zambia, because of the migration patterns that we've seen happening in various spaces globally, in former colonies of the South. So what that means is that, spiritually speaking, and we're talking about culture, it means that culture is not necessarily a static phenomenon. Culture is something that evolves, and our bodies take us into different places around culture, or cultures, which have got the interconnectedness of who we are as spirit beings, who we are as beings of earth, in that traveling, in that interconnectedness. But what also emanates in this interconnectedness globally is the fact that we need to be able to understand that, for instance, in my own body and in my own spiritualities that I embrace, there are elements of violence, in a sense that even as I have that is white, even as I have this heritage that is mixed, it emanated from a place of colonial violence, right? We cannot ignore that fact. But we also cannot ignore the fact that I choose to be able autonomously work with that energy in ways that usher us into a place of healing. So what you find in the realm of the spirit, in the realm of cultures, is a conversation between these spirits that are united all in my body because of my heritage in my cells. Both my mother and father comes from that. So I cannot deny the fact that I have this ancestry that is linked to those elements of violence. But I choose spiritually, in the form of initiation that I've taken as Isangoma, to allow the conversation to happen in a way that says, let us recognize that we have violated each other, but find ourselves emerging through this body in a conversation of healing and unity and interconnectedness, which is then, as far as I'm concerned, a conversation in this day that we are observing, the Global Day of Culture, a conversation that should usher us into a place of imagining what it is to be united, what it means to live as a connected cultures, whether one is black or one is white, whether one is Indian, whether one is all the kinds of identities that we are, that we allow these spirits. So in the African traditional healing systems, when we do initiation processes and you usher people into the world of imagination spiritually, there is that autonomy and that ability to say, I would want to embrace these kinds of spirits or these kinds of guides as they emanate from that place, or you don't. But my message in my body as I engage in this conversation today in 2020, particularly during COVID-19, is a message that says, this moment has arrived for us spiritually in the celestial to say it is a moment of global interconnectedness. It is a moment where elements of culture, cultures, because culture cannot be singular, culture is plural because it's a traveling phenomena. Culture is something that is not seated in one place. Our bodies and our cells and our spiritual guides, over time, they make us travel in that way to the globe and in between spaces, that we recognize that interconnectedness, but also we become honest about the need as we emerge into this newness that is posed by COVID-19 pandemic. During this time, we emerge into a conversation that says harm has been done and it is possible to heal, and allow a conversation of honesty that is ushered by the variations of our cultures, which are embodied in ourselves as spiritual beings, and beings of different kinds, beings of light, beings of peace, and beings of positive energy, that we bring all of that into this moment, especially on this day of the 21st, but also as we are approaching Africa Day on the 25th, to say these are the moments for conversation. And culture is a vehicle through which we can find each other, whether it is about language, whether it is about rituals, whether it is about the kinds of practices that we imagine, but also the energetic elements of what these moments mean. It's something that I would like to really appeal on us and submit, that it is a moment of collective engagement, a moment of talking to each other in ways that are honest and humbled, and unifying as a globe, as a continent, and as a people. As I say, namaste, Togozani, Ndauwe, share. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bilakazi, for sharing your knowledge with us. Our next guest speaker is Swami Vedanand Saraswati ji. Swamiji was born in Pietermaritzburg, South Africa in 1989. He served as a member of the Arya Samaj Veda Dharma Sabha Pietermaritzburg for many years as a youth scholar, and was inspired by the teachings of the Maharishi Swami Dayanand Saraswati, the founder of the Arya Samaj. In 2004, he moved to Pretoria, where he was founded the Vedic Hindu Youth League at Pretoria Boys High School, where he completed his high school education. Being committed to social welfare and propagation of Vedic Dharma, he later expanded the movement to form the Veda Dharma Sabha Pretoria in 2009, which is affiliated to the Arya Patadini Sabha, South Africa. After completing his degree in BCom Accounting Science at the University of Pretoria in 2012, he went abroad to India to complete his studies in Vedic scriptures and spiritual sadhana, keeping the vow of a brahmacharya. On the 14th of June 2016, he was initiated in sannyasi order by Pujari Swami Chidanand Saraswati ji, spiritual head and president of the Pramat Nikitan Ashram, Rishikesh, India, and was named Swami Vedanand Saraswati. Between 2016 and 2018, Swamiji mentored and tutored Divesh and Kamal Kasiram, two selfless Aryas who have dedicated their lives for the work of Arya Samaj and society at large in spreading the teachings of the Vedas and uplifting all the lead dharmic lives. They will be with Swamiji in leading the Samaj and its current future initiatives. In 2018, Swamiji was invited to attend the Parliament of World Religions in Toronto, as well as being invited to the United States for talks on religion and social justice on the global scale. In 2019, Swamiji was elected as a spiritual head of the Arya Samaj South Africa and started working on his vision for the future of the Arya Samaj South Africa and help it drive all its projects of the Samaj as well and embark on new ones, and was also elected as a Global Interfaith WASH Alliance Africa project coordinator. In November 2019, Swamiji was invited to be the global Hindu representative at the conference hosted by the churches witnessing with migrants, a conference on rights and plight of the migrants, refugees and uprooted people with global leaders, which created a charter to present it for the UN for international migrant policy review. Swamiji remains committed to the social welfare and spiritual education of the people by promoting the Vedic value system and spreading the knowledge of the Vedas to all. He remains an active leader of the Arya Samaj movement. Swamiji, thank you.
Thank you, Program Director, Dr. Yogi Ji, honorable guests, and my dearest brothers and sisters, my humble namaste to each and every one of you. When we generally think of culture, generally what comes to mind is language, food, religion, and to a great degree, it's ultimately a way of life for people. A diverse way of life founded primarily on geographic location and shared patterns of behaviors and interactions, cognitive constructs, and understanding that are learned through socialization. However, when I think of culture in its true sense, it is a vibrant and diverse display of values. After all, each culture is based on a set of values which attempts to bring out the best in an individual, subject to their diverse nature. Yet, we find that in all essence, values are one, but their application, their approach, and their understanding is diverse. This is culture. Therefore, if the root of culture is values, and the values among all cultures are one, then therein lies the thread which connects us all in seeing and understanding culture as universal consciousness. The Atharva Veda 12:145 says, Jana vibrati bahudha vivachasagum na na dharmanagum prithvi yato kasham sahasragum dhara drivanasya me duhagum druveva dhenurana pashpuranti. Bearing and sustaining many people, speaking different languages and observing different forms of karma in life, conduct and profession in many different ways, just like a family living in the same one home under one roof. May this wide and varied Mother Earth, constant, firm and undisturbed, give me 1,000 showers and streams of wealth, like the mother cow profusely giving streams of milk steadily, continuously, and patiently. This is the meaning of this mantra. Universal consciousness breaks all the boundaries that categorizes us. It is ultimately the root and destination of our oneness. It is the awareness that while we are unique and diverse in form, in thought, and in action, we are all connected together with everything around us. It is the turning of the separations into merged fields with a central focal point, yet no rigid barriers. It is that thread that teaches us that we are interdependent and not independent. And our greatest teacher of this is none other than Mother Nature. We see the diverse beauty of the trees, the sea, the sun, the moon and the wind and the rain. All are unique. All are their own and have their respective duty. The sun will shine, the rain will give us water, the wind will blow, the trees give us shade, give us nourishment through their fruit. Yet, as individual as each of them, it is an interdependent and harmonious network that makes this whole world function. And so too must we as human beings do exactly the same. Within the spectrum of our diverse cultures, we must be mutual, cordial, and harmonious, remembering that we too are interdependent, just like the Vedic philosophy teaches us Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, meaning that the whole world is one family, or the African philosophy of Ubuntu, which is exactly the same. I am because we all are. New Thought author Charles of the universal mind and its relationship to humans. The universal mind, being infinite and impotent, has unlimited resources at its command. And when we remember that it is also omnipresent, we cannot escape the conclusion that we must be an expression or manifestation of that mind. A recognition and understanding of the resources of the subconscious mind will indicate that the only difference between the subconscious and the universal conscious is one of degree. They differ only as a drop of water differs from the ocean, but they are the same in kind and in quality. The difference is of degree only. Yajurveda chapter 40 verse 6 says, Yastu sarvani bhutanyatmanevanu pashyati sarvam tato na vichikitsati. It means he who sees all beings in the self and the self in all beings feels no hatred or difference against any creature in the world, for that person realizes the oneness of all souls. The nature of the universal mind is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. In the universal consciousness, it's not about being Indian or being American, about being black or being white. It's about being human. Our dharma, our true way of life as humans is humanity. We realize that it's not about the language that we speak, but the content, the depth, and the value of our speech. When you remove the barriers of the form of culture, we realize the value of culture, the raw essence of culture. We realize that we are all saying the same thing. We all value the same thing. All our cultures teach us about humanity and all the principles that follow, like truth, compassion, peace, honesty, and goodwill. Whether one believes in God or whether one is, the belief and the desire to live according to the values is common to us all. It is the intellectual thread. It is this which makes us superior to instinctual. The universal mind contains all the knowledge. It is the potential ultimate of all things. To it, all things are possible. Yet, as constant and eternal as our values are, culture, which is the diverse expression of those values, is ever dynamic and is transitory. It is forever changing. No matter what culture a people are part of, one thing is for certain: it will change and it will transform. Culture has to become the key in our interconnected world, which is made up of so many ethnically diverse societies, but sadly is also riddled by conflicts associated with religion, ethnicity, beliefs, and language, and essentially the elements which make up culture. But culture is no longer fixed. It is essentially fluid and constantly in motion. However, while change is inevitable, the past must also be respected and preserved as a reminder of our roots and our development to the life that we lead today. Whether good or bad, it is a lesson and a lesson all the same. There are two beautiful Vedic mantras which encapsulate both culture as universal consciousness and the essence of oneness, and I shall recite it to you. Sankachadhvam samvadhadhvam संवो मनांसि जानता देवा भागम यथा पूर्वे संजनाना उपासते समानो मंत्रः समिति समानी समानं मनः सह चित्तमेषाम् समानं मंत्र अभिमन्त्रयेवः समानेन वो हविषा जुहोमि. May you move in harmony, speak in one voice. Let your minds be in agreement, just as our ancient seers and sages relegated in unity. Let your deliberations be common, your assembly be of common aim. Meet together, come together, speak together, and have a common ideology, so that you may have a common working aim, a single reality, united in our diversity. This is the note of the concluding message of the Rig Veda. Let us take this. Let us express this unity in our cultural diversity, so that humanity can once again. Pranam, thank you, and namaste.
Thank you, Swami Vedanand Saraswati ji, for those enlightening words. Our next guest speaker for today is Dr. Lefa Holope. Dr. Lefa Halope is an author, Indigenous knowledge advocacy, and African traditional and natural products medicine activist and traditional health practitioner. Situated at the Triangle, Gauteng Province, South Africa, he is the CEO of St. Patlosa Clinic NPC, Academy of Traditional Health Practitioners and Herbalism since 1987, a vocal institution awareness on how best can the Sangomas, faith-based healers, and academics work together. Life expectancy is our concern, and bridging the world of science and spirituality. Dr. Halope is the chairperson of the Marina College NPC, MMC, and Academy of Cultural Diversity and Homeopathy. They promote universal consciousness because the universe no longer cares for the positions we hold. It cares on what we do for other people. We advocacy on the better leadership skills to give hope to the disadvantaged society. Another world is possible.
All protocol observed. Good day. Lesedi, meaning let there be light. Hoto, meaning peace be unto you. I'm humbled and honored by the invitation. Greetings to distinguished guests, and thank you to Dr. Vilakazi. Let's share the understanding of culture as universal consciousness. All races were like a rainbow. They have different colors, but the aim is to shine together. Let's rephrase. All races are like the rainbow once again. The aim is to shine together. What is the definition of the cultural universal? It is an element or a pattern, trait, or institution that is common to all human cultures worldwide. Learning objectives, discussions, cultural universal in terms of the various elements of culture, such as norms and beliefs. Cultural consciousness can be defined as a process of developing awareness of culture, which can result in expanding understandings of culture and developing deeper cultural knowledge and about individuals and contexts. Culture in this process can be understood as the set of shared attitudes, values, beliefs, behavioral standards, goals, and practices that characterize our thoughts, beliefs, and behavior as determined by the culture in terms of influencing or teaching the learning practices. Educational research for the most youth, especially as they are the upcoming pioneers in the forefront. We need to change our mindset towards our cultural heritage. Culture without economical freedom is an injustice. We need to value land, African traditional medicines, agriculture, respect environment, and continue to drink Artemisia, Umhlonyane, Lingala during COVID-19 pandemic. We're not saying it can cure it, but it can boost the immune systems. We never abuse that herb because harvesting is a crisis due to global warming in the continent, and follow the safe guidelines from the Department of Health across. As the universe, we need to reverse the legacy of apartheid because another world is possible through the cultural universal consciousness. God bless India. God bless World Culture Day. In closing, to Morena Mohlomi College, MMC, a School of Cultural Studies and Homeopathic in South Africa, under the leadership of Dr. Ramo Kunupi and Mr. Om Timkulu, we say long live to Chief Mohlomi, who mentored the first king of the Basotho Nation in Free State, as he marks 300 years this year in 2020. It's his tricentenary. To commemorate also on August, whereby it will be an international cultural collection book launch. I thank you all. I am the son of the soil.
Thank you, Dr. Lefa Helope, for those wonderful remarks. We will now have a cultural video performed by Chipangi Dance Academy, Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you to Jibangi Dance Academy for that beautiful performance. Our next guest speaker needs no introduction, Mr. Toki Mohoto. Mr. Toki Mohoto is a creative business scientist and indigenous knowledge proponent who is currently based in Durban. He has qualifications and experience in HR, NLP project management, and business administration. He is the author and publisher of 3 books which focuses on social issues. He currently serves as a community leader, youth empowerment advocate, and social cohesion through the Arts Champion. Mr. Toki Mohoto.
For the introduction, as well as the honor of being a guest within this program. As have been introduced, my name is Toki Mohoto, based in Durban. I consider today's topic quite relevant and particularly personal for me. One, because I hold a Japanese name and I also have a Japanese surname, but I'm African, I am Sotho, with a paternal side that is leaning toward Basotho, and the Nama, known as the Khoikhoi, and the maternal side linked more to the Xhosa, which is Bata, as well as the Portuguese from Mozambique. What I feel about today's event is that it rather exposes me as an individual to how universal I am and how my own consciousness and worldview in terms of what I approach as life and how I interact with the rest of human beings determines so much of how my destiny is to be shaped. I've been fortunate to work mostly within the creative arts sector, and there has been a focus of mine which, using the modalities of creativity, we have allowed a number of youth to understand, interpret, as well as define their own version of what culture and human interaction as well as evolution is. Using the modalities, obviously, of performance arts, we've seen a number of youth express themselves differently. Most, yes, may adopt pop culture, and most of them may feel that perhaps expressive arts allows them to self-define as well as show the world who they are in essence. But in essence, what I've discovered is that we are all the same. What is unique about my upbringing, again, is I came from a deeply traditional background where indigenous knowledge systems were taught to us from an early age. But because living in a township and living in South Africa particularly, one had to adopt a particular religion to survive. I was then subsumed under the culture of Christianity for about 18 to 19 years within the sect called Mormonism. I'm not promoting them, but I'm just drawing context in terms of how my worldview has been shaped by interacting with different cultures. Now, having survived the 18 years, I then learned that the forebear whose name I have, which is Toki, was a traditional healer. And that meant that I had to transition between Christianity and being an indigenous knowledge proponent. I'm talking about one who's been religious for about 18 years and is now asked to assume a calling which has its own cultural precepts, which has its own belief system, which also allows or forces one to behave in a particular sense. One had to engage in sobriety for about 4 years until the ancestor whose name I bear was happy to reincarnate through me. And when that happened, my own expression changed totally. And if I can just show you on the hands, I've got different colored bands. It's beads actually. The one set, which is yellow and white, denotes ancestry and wisdom. And the other set, which is blue and white, this denotes the expansiveness of the ocean as well as the beauty or the treasures that are lying within. This also has allowed me as a human to not only view culture as a phenomena, as a phenomena between a particular group or as well as one particular way of life, but it's allowed me to see culture as something that I can use to interact with a particular person or situation, as well as chart my own course of evolution using culture. I've been fortunate to see things as a world citizen. That means I pay little regard to religion, I pay little regard to political affiliation. I do know a few languages, as well as my soul, as I've previously stated, it's quite colorful. And as you can see at the back, I've got the South African flag. What this means for us as South Africans is that in the traditional sense where I'm currently housed, colors determine so much of who you are or become as a person. If you can see the green there, for us as Basotho, or I as a world citizen, it denotes vegetation, it denotes new beginnings. And the red there would be more for the blood, sweat, and tears and the toil that goes into cultivating land, as well as pinning down one's cultural identity. If you look at the blue again, we link it still to the sea or the skies. And if you look at the black, it looks at the melanated version of ourselves as Black people, but most importantly, it looks at the deepness as well as the colorlessness of our space and ionosphere. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I just thought I would share a bit with regards to one of the books that I've written, which is Mutiwami. Mutiwami speaks more about unifying traditional healers as well as world consciousness using, again, vegetation. Hence, the NGO I founded focuses more on naturopathy and allowing traditional healers or people who adhere to indigenous knowledge to not feel subsumed within a culture of multiculturalism or not have an identity and a voice, but to appreciate themselves as unique beings who can contribute and add value toward the evolution of humankind, and then use the time, opportunity, and gifts allotted to them to ensure that the rest of humanity do accept ourselves as a world family, and that by so doing, we also accept that each and every person's contribution determines the evolution and the destiny of the next person. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and those are my few sayings for the given opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Toki Mohoto, for sharing your knowledge with us. Our next guest speaker is Dr. Justin Yarrow. Dr. Justin Yarrow is a director of Codemakers, an NPO dedicated to youth empowerment through science and technology education. Codemakers teaches computer coding with the code to learn approach, developing learners' voices to the creation of animations and games on topics including Youth Month, Mandela Day, and HIV/AIDS. To improve success to coding education tools, Codemakers translated the free coding language Scratch into isiZulu and is developing South African specific images that learners can use to tell stories that relate to their lives. Recently launched, Super Scientists is a project to depict scientists as a superhero speaking a language that kids understand and creating trading cards that show off how important and amazing scientists are.
Great, thanks so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about our work and to put it into the context of this larger celebration of culture. So I'm going to talk, and I'm going to show some slides of our work as Codemakers. Essentially, we started as a pretty straightforward science and tech education organization about 5 years ago. And initially it was pretty dry. We were teaching robotics. We were teaching kids how to make things out of cardboard and do some coding. And then very quickly, we sort of caught on to the fact that we're missing a large part of how kids live, of how kids think about their world. And so let me just share some slides with you to show the work that really they've put together. Because in many respects, Codemakers as an organization and me specifically, we're sort of developing kids and developing their abilities, but it's them who's doing the work. So this is us, it's Codemakers, and I'm showing the pictures here because a lot of what we do is around art and the creativity of young people. And I think this is, a universal thing that we've all seen, whether from, paintings and in caves and to you know the best art in galleries. So these are some of the kids that we work with, and they're full of energy and they're full of vitality, and they all want to get into these different types of jobs and develop as people. Some of these jobs, you know, don't exist yet, and will only exist by the time that they graduate from varsity or later on. And so our approach as code makers is really to develop these different sort of skills that young people, I think, they sometimes get in school, but often school is too reductive. It's too prescriptive. And so we want them to develop their critical thinking, their experimentation, self-learning, confidence. We want them to visualize a future that might be quite different than the one that they've seen friends and family go into. And we do that through different programs. So coding education is one, a program all around careers, and that's sort of morphed into this project is another, and I'll talk about those briefly. So our approach as coding to learn is really to say that there are some ways to teach computer programming and the logic behind it that can be dull. You know, you can solve puzzles that they're interesting puzzles in themselves, but they don't really go further than that. And rather than that, you know, get kids making things, get kids telling their stories, making stick men fighting each other, really sort of develop their ideas and their voices at the same time that you're developing, you know, what is a loop and what is a Boolean statement. So, and that really came to the fore when we had a young person come up to us, and his friends were taking our class, and he pulled out all of these different drawings from his backpack. He'd drawn characters, he'd drawn airplanes and houses and cars and all of these different settings. He developed a whole world or even universe of different people who he had imbued different characteristics into. And this was, he wanted a game. He wanted to make a Grand Theft Auto game, but he wanted to use characters from Chesterville in Cato Manor outside of Durban. And I think, you know, what this really comes down to is the fact that the kids and we live through stories and we live through characters, whether it's, you know, sitting around listening to somebody tell story time, or Liam Flope, a great storyteller of South Africa, or Black Panther and all of the Marvel superhero comics that are out there. So what we've done then is we've really helped kids develop their storytelling, and coding, but doing it through projects that relate to them. So, you know, here's a project that was built around Heritage Day. This was one of some young kids in primary school that were learning about Ubuntu in their class, and then they're turning it into an animation where this girl gives a taco. I think it was meant to be a loaf of bread to the other character, but she's learning, you know, what is Ubuntu, and she's telling what Ubuntu means to her while she's also creating something. The stickmen, the number of different projects that kids make around stickmen fighting, it's amazing. And then you know, something that's a bit more commercial. And I think part of what's interesting about this entire approach. But so this was working with a company. We asked kids to make a short animation that would become like an Instagram advertisement for that company. So the young people are learning about what is a brief. They're responding to that brief for the company. They're making an animation, and then the company gets to use it. The kids get to say they made this thing for a company. And I think, you know, one of the big reasons that we're doing this is, you know, there's culture within our day-to-day lives and within our families and our communities, but there's also culture that exists online. And I think, you know, a lot of that online culture is dominated by people that either got on earlier or had the skills and abilities and the hardware to make it happen. So one of the things that we you know, we want these stories to get out there, because we think that we're richer as a world when all different voices are being heard. And so as part of that, one of the things that we're also doing is we're localizing the tools of creativity to allow young people to create. So it was mentioned in the bio that we've translated Scratch into isiZulu. So this is just a little screenshot of it, but essentially what Scratch is free software from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology used by hundreds of millions of people all over the world. It's drag and drop block coding, and what we've done is we've translated it so you press a button and now all the blocks are in isiZulu. So now kids are thinking not in English and then having to translate it, or sorry, thinking in their mother tongue, thinking in isiZulu, but then having to translate it into English to learn this vital skill and this tool for creativity. But instead, they're thinking in isiZulu, they're using the tools in isiZulu, and then what we're now doing is we're creating characters that they see and know, so that they're not having to use a bus that maybe came from Massachusetts, where MIT is based in the US, but now they can make a story with a taxi, or they can make a story with a Pansula dancer. And so we just, we want to develop kids' abilities around coding, but it's as a means of logic and learning their voices and learning that they have these stories that the rest of the world really wants to know and hear. And so then just getting back to the same idea, and specifically around Black Panther, one of the things that we've that as a science and technology education organization, and as myself as a PhD scientist, we want more people to understand the importance of science and the people that do it, and for young people to see people that look like them when they think about science and scientists, and not think about Einstein. So these are 4 fabulous scientists that work here in Durban. They work at the Africa Health Research Institute. And what we did was we turned these scientists into superheroes. So there they are holding their super scientist card, and they have a superhero name. She's Ironheart, doctor, and he's Interferon. And on these cards, they talk about who their heroes are. So we're sort of making the circle bigger so that young people see that people that they look up to also have heroes. They give advice, they talk about what they do as their science. And here's just some of the different scientists now that we've profiled, and what we're doing with these to get them into the hands of young people, and get them to see that this is what a marine biologist looks like, and what she's doing, color in pages, other sorts of things. We just want to develop this as a culture of learning and the importance, I think, of science with during the lockdown. Like, I don't think science has ever been more important in all of our lives, and we need more people, and we need inclusivity in science. So we need the people across the spectrum that are engaging and trying to answer the questions that we all want answered. So, and I will try to shut this down. Oh God, I don't know how to. But I thank you very much. Oh, there we go. I'm going to stop sharing. And yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Justin Yarrow, for that informative presentation. Now we shall have a song by Ms. Kavita Solanki. Ms. Kavita Solanki is a teacher of Indian culture at the Swami Vivekananda Culture Center. I'm just going to give a quick translation before Ms. Kavita sings it. Let us become yogis of the nation is the name of it. Let us become yogis of this earth. Let us meditate on Bharat, known as earth. Let us carry the flag of Dharma. Let us work towards the upliftment of this earth, wearing the garland of good nature, wearing the outfit of knowledge, holding the stick of sacrifice. Let us work towards the upliftment of our motherland, burning all desires and removing all the sorrows and gathering all the saints. Let us work towards the upliftment of our motherland. The upliftment of the earth is the purpose of our birth, the cause of our liberation, and the practice for our path to heaven. Miss Kavita Salanki.
Thank you, Cheryl ji. Namaskar, everyone. Enjoy the beautiful song. बने हम विश्व के योगी, करेंगे ध्यान वसुधा का, उठा कर युग धर्म का झंडा, करे उत्थान भारत का। गले में शील की माला, पहन कर ज्ञान की कफनी, पकड़ कर त्याग का झंडा, करेंगे ध्यान विश्व का। बने हम विश्व के योगी, करेंगे ध्यान वसुधा का। गले में शील की माला, पहन कर ज्ञान की कफनी, पकड़ कर त्याग का डंडा, करे उत्थान वसुधा का। बने हम विश्व के योगी, करेंगे ध्यान वसुधा का। जला कर इष्ट की होली, उठा कर कष्ट की झोली, जमा कर संत की टोली, करे उत्थान वसुधा का। बने हम विश्व के योगी, करेंगे ध्यान वसुधा का। हमारे जन्म का सार्थक, हमारे मोक्ष का कारण, हमारे स्वर्ग का साधन, यही उत्थान वसुधा का। बने हम विश्व के योगी, करेंगे ध्यान वसुधा का। बने हम विश्व के योगी, करेंगे ध्यान वसुधा का। थैंक यू, धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Miss Kavita Solanki, for that beautiful song. Our next guest speaker is Professor Rajneesh Kumar Shukla, currently the Vice Chancellor of the Mahatma Gandhi International Hindu University, Padwa, Maharashtra, India, a professor with extensive knowledge and impressive CV. Dr. Shukla was appointed as lecturer in 1991, appointed as a reader 2000, appointed as director College Development Council from 2002 to 2008, professor from September 2008. Total years of teaching experience is 24 years. Professor Shukla has co-authored 6 books. He has extensive research experience. One major research project of UGC completed from 2008 to March 2011. One minor research project of UGC completed from January 1992 to December 1993. 23 students awarded PhD degrees under Dr. Shukla's supervision. Dr. Shukla has participated and presented papers in various seminars, symposia, and workshops. National seminars more than 30, international 5, seminar workshop organized, national 4, international 2, refresher course organized 3 as director and co-director. He is a member of various academic bodies, member research degree committee from 1994 till now, member of faculty board from 2000 till now, member academic council from 2005 till now. I present you Dr. Rajneesh Kumar Shukla.
Namaste, everybody. I'm feeling grateful to Vivekananda International Vivekananda's Cultural Center at the Consulate General, Durban. At the very occasion of the World Cultural Day, we are discussing on the issue, is there any possibility of universal consciousness? Is it possible a culture could be culminated as universal consciousness? It's very difficult to think about the universal mind, the existence of universal mind, the possibilities of the universal mind, universal consciousness at the very time. Because in contemporary era, we are living in the world of divisions. Division based on civilizations. If we look back in our history, we can divide our history of the mankind in different ages. These ages are divided on the basis of the civilization, polity, and so on. But we never tried to understand human being and this world on the basis of the cultural evolution. We always try to understand this world on the basis of reason, scientific aptitude, scientific temper, usefulness of the others, utility of the things scattered around us, and this scenario ultimately conditioned human mind to think between division of I and thou, I and you, my and their. Ours and theirs. This division, division always creates a difference of the opinion about our daily values. And ultimately, the civilization culminated into such sophist approach of the culture. Homo mensura, man is the measure of all things, which is good for myself, that is the good. We judge all things with our own usefulness. If something is useful for me, then that is useful. If something is helpful for me, then he is ours. He is near to me. I can create a relation with him. Every time it is going on. But when we are discussing this issue, this is a very crucial juncture for humanity. Some definitions are changed. We are living at the very time, at the very moment, the entire world in the civilization of social distancing, and the civilization of isolation, and the world of lockdown. This is drastic. This is painful, but this is the hard reality of the time. We never tried to understand what should be the ultimate goal of humanity. we always try to understand the goal of individuals, the goal of family and goal of the nations and communities. But we never tried to achieve, we never tried to build a goal of humanity, a goal of entire world, entire cosmos. So this word universal consciousness is not a very new word. This is not the result of the painful situation of our time, but we are discussing after a long, the last 70, 80 years of the cultural history studies has discarded this term, the universal consciousness. In the domain of the cultural studies, in the domain of the culture, the universal consciousness is not possible because the culture encompasses a behavior of a particular group, the habits of the particular group, knowledge and belief system of the particular group, and other activities of a particular group. Contemporary experts of the culture does not believe there is the possibility of universal culture. But as so far ancient Indian philosophy and Greek philosophy, whenever we analyze that, we can trace the tenets of this universal consciousness. And that universal consciousness is nothing but based on the creative cultural knowledge system. Knowledge is not based only on the reason and argumentation. Knowledge is not only based on the relation of the terms and the relation of the attributes, but knowledge or ultimate knowledge is possible only through the creation. And the pre-Socrates is Anaxagoras is the first philosopher who used this term, universal consciousness or universal mind. And he used to say, this is nothing but a concept, a metaphysical term, a metaphysical concept suggesting an underlying essence of all being and becoming in the universe. This is very true in Indian philosophy also. In Srimad Bhagavata, a very famous book of among the Indian scripture, the philosophy of the bhakti and devotion is very much described there. There is a very famous verse. Dhyayato Vishyan Punsa Sangam Te Supajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamo Kamat. No. Sistva Purana Vividhanya Jayatma Satya Vrichan Pasu Sarisripa Khagan Dansan Tasma Tatusta Hridaya Purusam Vidaya Brahma Avalokati Shranam Mudama. The first of all, Almighty Creator, the God, created the reptiles, the birds, the elephants, the dinosaurs, and so many species, but not achieved the satisfaction. He was dissatisfied. God was dissatisfied. And this satisfaction, unsatisfied mind, he created the human being. And when he saw the human being is contemplating about the universal consciousness, the Brahman, satisfaction. Actually, this was want to describe what should be the ultimate goal of the human being. That is thinking about the underlying reality, the underlying consciousness, whether that is soul or not, does not matter, but there is consciousness. The consciousness is reality which could be perceived. So we have to contemplate, we have to think about this consciousness. And every conscious being have something common in essence. This commonality should be explored. And this commonality is nothing but the culture. The Vedas say, Sa Sanskriti Vishwavara. This is the culture. The consciousness is the culture. The Chiti is the culture. Chiti is the consciousness. Chiti is the mind. Chitta is used term for the consciousness in the Indian Sanskrit scriptures. So this Chiti, Sa Sanskriti Vishwavara, Sa Rastri Sangamini Vasunam Chikitsi. That Chiti, that Chitta is all pervading culture. Now we can understand what is the culture according to that those Indian seers. They believe there are three stages of this creation. One is the primitive nature, another is the culture, and another is last is the deformation. The Sanskrit term used for these is the Prakriti, Sanskriti, and Vikriti. The Sanskriti is nothing but the creation. And creation is possible with the creative mind. If creative consciousness exists, then creation is possible. Through scientific rationality, the creation is not possible. And we can differentiate the entire world between two parts. One is the created world, and another is the constructed world. Constructed world is the world of the civilization. And the created world is the world of feeling, emotions, and empathical consciousness. So this world, and that manifests through the poem, poetry, songs, dance, drama, and so many literary and art activities. We can realize that, we can visualize that. Entire literary activities, art activities are meant for welfare, well-being of the human being, for satisfaction of the human being. That is the way adopting a way of life to these activities, creative activities, we can change our life, and a change conscious mind can change his surroundings. This is the basic. And universality means not that that universal and objectively real. Culture cannot be objectively universal real. Objectivity and universality is not possible. Objectivity always demands a particularity. And universality always demands a conscious conceptualization. But for last 300 to 400 years, we are not conceptualizing this world. We are not trying to understand this world in our world of ideas, but we are trying to understand this world in the world of experiences. The culture is the way which leads us to understand this world in world of ideas, in the world of realization. In spite of understanding this world in the world of experiences, sense experiences, and with the argumentations. This is the right time. This is the high time when we can start a new discussion, a new discourse, how to create a creative consciousness in this civilization. By creation of the creative consciousness, we can create a cultural human being, and by creating a cultural human being, we can leads towards the universal consciousness. And for this, only scientific and technological knowledge is not sufficient, but we have to think something about the spirituality. Spirituality means not thinking about the world beyond this, about the transcendental world, but spirituality means thinking about the values. What is the ultimate goal of the life? What is the objective of a human being which can satisfy me in eternal sense, in ultimate sense? Satisfied ultimately, that should be, that must be explored, and the values which could be understand, which could be created through a creative consciousness that will create a cultural worldview. Our problem, or the problem of our time, is the problem of the worldview. We are living in the worldview of the civilization. We are living in the world of the usefulness and utility. Rather, satisfaction of being is ignored. We have to explore the way of life which is able and competent to satisfy the human being. The exploration of the way of our daily life with this worldview of the creation rather than the construction can create a cultural worldview. And on this criterion, we can judge this world of experiences, and we will find this world is not for our lust, but this world is for our forgiveness, kindness, for our better value-centric life. culture is the quest of value-centric life, and universalization of the values as means and ends is a way to create universal consciousness. And by this, we can say the culture can be understandable as universal consciousness. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you to Professor Rajni Kumar Shukla from India. Thank you, sir, for taking time off your busy schedule to share your immense knowledge with us. Now that we have come to today's end of today's program, we will have vote of thanks by my colleague, Ms. Shristi Harinarayan.
Namaskar. On behalf of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, it gives me great pleasure in rendering the vote of thanks this evening. Firstly, we'd like to thank Dr. Fikile Nobukani Vilakasi, Swami Vednam Saraswati, Dr. Lefa Shloko, the Tribangi Dance Academy, with special thanks to Ms. Jayasri Mupin, Mr. Toki Mohato, Dr. Justin Yarrow, and a special thanks to our guest speaker all the way from India, Professor Rajneesh Kumar Shukla. Special thanks to Ms. Cheryl Banwarilal, Ms. Kavita Solanki, our director at the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, and to the gentleman who makes all our programs possible, Mr. Piyush Khandelwal. Thank you so much for all your support. And most importantly, to you, our online guests, for joining us. Please stay tuned to our social media pages for what's happening next at SVCC. For me, stay safe, stay home, and stay blessed. Namaskar.